Good afternoon, and thank you for joining the Downtown San Diego Partnership and the San Diego Bid Alliance for today's conversation about outdoor dining in San Diego. I'm Marshall Anderson, Vice President of Government Affairs for the Downtown San Diego Partnership, and I'll be your moderator for today. Before we begin, it would be imprudent not to mention the devastating death of George Floyd. We at the Downtown Partnership believe we have a duty to ensure our efforts are promoting equality, addressing systemic injustice, and racial discrimination wherever they exist. The Downtown Partnership stands with our Black community, including our Black employees, Black business owners, Black residents, and our Black members. We know Black Lives Matter and know we must unite as a community to speak out against prejudice and injustice in all forms. Thank you for listening. A couple of housekeeping notes on the format of today's webinar. We did receive a number of questions that you submitted during the registration process. We'll try to get to as many of those as possible. If questions do arise during the webinar, please utilize Zoom's Q&A function, not the chat box, the Q&A function, and we'll try to get those questions asked as quickly as possible. As many of us plan for a future where current restrictions begin to safely loosen, we all know we need to adapt to meet the new normal. Today's discussion will focus on the city's efforts to expand open-air dining programs, what that process looks like, and how interested organizations and businesses can participate. In this effort, we have been lucky to have the quick and dedicated collaboration of our city officials, many of which are here with us today. The first up is Elise Lowe. Elise is director of the city's Development Services Department. She really needs no introduction, so Elise, I'll let you take it away.
All right, well, thanks everyone. Pleased to be here today, and I am gonna just ask for your patience as I bring up this file. And had to make a quick last-minute adjustment to it. So I want to go ahead and make sure that I do introductions of the other folks that are here today, acknowledgements from the city. Truly what's happening is a multi-departmental effort, and if not for the help of the special events and filming department, the Economic Development Department, together with San Diego Fire and PD, this truly would not be possible. It's very, very important for us to support our small businesses and be able to bring something forward as quickly as possible so that we can help get businesses back up and running. We want nothing more than this. So I'm just about ready to share my screen here. How many people do we have on the call with us today?
So we have 134 participants, which is really great. We have a lot of participants throughout the county, actually, and I do want to acknowledge, looks like the mayor of National City has also joined us. So Mayor, thanks for participating. At least it looks like we can see your screen now, so.
Great. Well, let's get this bad boy into presentation mode and get started. So thank you, everyone, for this briefing on temporary outdoor business operations, development services, issues, permits for all development and ministerial uses. And we have some existing permits that we are proposing to essentially streamline in order to create this process. So again, and I have with us today and assisting with the presentation, Natasha Kalura, Liz Studebaker, and Sean Carafin. So we are looking at bringing forward to the San Diego City Council in an interim emergency ordinance, temporary amendments to the regulations that will allow for Sidewalk Cafe, Pedestrian Plazas, street closures, use of private parking lots, and the addition of temporary signage. This presentation will also go over additional outside agency requirements. So as you know, under the state of California, the resilience roadmap, we've gone from stage 1 to stage 2 in terms of being ready to deal with the resilience of COVID-19, and ideally with stage 3, higher risk workplaces opening, and then eventually stage 4, the end of the stay-at-home order, which I'm pretty sure we're all ready for. I'll go through this very quickly, but the gradually opening the lower risk workplaces with the adaptations is in place. So retail, manufacturing, offices where telework's not possible, and then the limited personal services. I know I can't wait for them to be able to reopen our nail salons because I need to go very bad. And the state of California, the city of San Diego, and the county working together to be able to open the higher risk workplaces in the future. In San Diego County, open now, the partial list of the essential businesses you see there on the left with grocery, farmers markets, restaurants with modified dine-in service, banks, laundry, hardware, auto repair, childcare, and then reopened with very specific guidance that's been issued by the state, the in-store retail, as well as hair salons, pet grooming. I'm skipping over some of these things. You can see the list here, but we know that for different industries, there's been different guidance, and hopefully you all have access to this information. Specifically, the state of California, Cal OSHA, and the County of San Diego have issued COVID-19 guidance for dine-in restaurants, as well as food facility reopenings. So we'll be able to share with you links to these sites about what is required, assuming that you have it now, but happy to share it with you if you don't. The city of San Diego has created an temporary outdoor business operations website. And this website is going to be your go-to page for information about how to utilize the public right-of-way under new temporary regulations to be able to expand your business footprint. Specifically in this presentation, I'll be going over street closures to truly expand your space all the way to the middle of the street. The changes to the Sidewalk Cafe permit process and what we're going to allow. We're going to discuss the use of a parking lane. We call that Pedestrian Plazas in our existing code right now, and it's part of placemaking. But it does exist within our municipal code. We'll talk about how we're streamlining this. And then even the use of private property. There are many restaurants and retail-oriented businesses that are that have private parking lots that are looking to expand their operation into the parking lots. And with the temporary emergency ordinance, the city of San Diego proposes, or the city staff proposes to the city council to waive the parking regulations, which would enable the use of private parking lots for additional outdoor space. Going first to active sidewalks and sidewalk cafe permits. Private use of sidewalk space typically requires a sidewalk cafe permit under the municipal code. The city is going to propose to temporarily suspend some of the regulations required for sidewalk cafes to enable businesses to easily and temporarily use sidewalks for additional restaurant seating or retail. And it's funny, as I dove into this process and I started looking at all of the requirements that are needed under pre-COVID-19 conditions, there are in some cases where a business trying to apply for a sidewalk cafe actually has to get a discretionary neighborhood use permit. If you're in a certain neighborhood, if you're in the La Jolla Shores Plan District or the CU zone of the Central Urbanized Plan District. And that is a really time-consuming and expensive process, which under the temporary emergency ordinance going forward to the council, we propose to waive those requirements. So in this instance, you would not have to get a discretionary permit should that be required. We're also proposing to waive the right-of-way permit for the use of that sidewalk cafe. We are requiring that you submit a permit application and a layout plan, that the layout is limited to the area in the front of your business. You are required to maintain social distancing, which means 6-foot separation. So if you have a smaller sidewalk, this isn't your panacea. You may not be able to get as many spaces as you hope and still comply with social distancing. It's also critical that we maintain public circulation with accessibility requirements for ADA. So we'll be ensuring that you have a minimum 4 feet, preferably 5 feet of ADA space for the public circulation on the public right-of-way, and that you provide to the city of San Diego an encroachment maintenance removal agreement. And that EMRA is actually going to be your permit application for sidewalk cafes. It will require you to ensure that you have insurance and that you would be responsible for removing the furniture that you put on the public right-of-way with a 10-day notification. This agreement is available on our website, and it's pretty easy to fill out. And we do need to make sure that this is a mandatory agreement for every sidewalk cafe. In putting together additional sidewalk cafe space, it's really important that we maintain access to utilities. We can't have that blocked if someone's water needs a shut off, etc. And we will be paying attention to crosswalks and bus stops. We need to be able to continue our pedestrian circulation. And you can see in this design right here what an example of an active sidewalk or a larger sidewalk cafe could look like. This is another example of a diagram of active sidewalks, and this is not one that was produced by the city of San Diego, but it is, this source is actually the city of Long Beach, but we thought it was a good diagram to show how important it is to have that necessary path of travel in order to maintain our ADA required pedestrian circulation. Around a door, you actually have to have a 5-foot separation for that path of travel. But the 4-foot path of travel is the minimum. And then again, continuing to maintain 6 feet social distance requirements for the regulations, even though it's outdoors. Okay, this diagram shows what some people call a parklet. Within the municipal code, we have named this pedestrian plazas. And what this is private use of off-site parking spaces for your business. So the city is proposing to temporarily suspend regulations for the pedestrian plaza permit and make it easier for you to apply for this. In this in this sketch, you will see that there is a constructed elevated platform, which enables the curb and the street to meet without any issues of the 6-inch curb. Our approach to using public parking spaces for the pedestrian plaza will not require this use. If you are to construct this type of a platform, that does require a building permit. It has to be reviewed. It has to be reviewed for stormwater. What we are proposing to do with the pedestrian plaza regulations is allow for your business to create the barrier necessary for it to have a safe distance and safe barrier from moving traffic, because you will be next to a traffic lane, but with the appropriate barrier, allow you to put the furniture directly onto the street. With ADA regulations, you will need to either provide a ramp down to from the sidewalk to the street, or you could reserve tables on the sidewalk for ADA use only. So those are some options that you can use. There will be businesses that are looking to build these pedestrian plaza spaces. The difference between how the city is utilizing them now and in the future with these temporary regulations is that this seating area would be in fact designated for your business in front of your business. Currently, the city uses pedestrian plazas. They're intended to be aesthetic enhancements to the streetscape where public users can use them. And in fact, that's not how we're envisioning it. We are envisioning these pedestrian plazas to be utilized for your business. In this drawing, it's with tables, but we are extending the same courtesies to retail operations as we are to restaurants. We still will need an application, a layout, the encroachment maintenance removal agreement. You've got to maintain social distancing as well as the access to utilities, crosswalks, bus stops, and then in this instance, protective barriers. And we'll be glad to work with you on what those protective barriers are, but it has to be something substantial. If we're putting people close to the street, it can't just be a light rope or something. It has to be more substantial. More detail on the street parking lane pedestrian plazas. In this slide, they're actually called parklets, but this is sort of detail of looking at if you were to create a seating area and what the setback would be from the moving traffic and then the area of your buffer. So we have this technical slide reminding you that we need fire code compliance and making sure that we really address the utilities, curb ramps, and crosswalks, and that other obstructions be avoided. Again, the street parking lane temporary usage. Here's an example of what a very temporary barrier would look like. That is not the most aesthetically pleasing barrier, but it is light. And then once it's on site, it gets filled with water to make it a much heavy barrier. We need to ensure that we're not blocking storm drain gutters, and that your business, if it's on a corner, we really need to be careful that we're able to maintain the visibility triangle for drivers so that they don't have visibility blocked. The bottom of this slide that shows the curb treatment for construction, if you were to construct that platform, which is an option, we're not prohibiting it, we're definitely allowing it, but if you are, it has to be built in a certain way to maintain the stormwater flow along the drainage gutters. It's really important to us that that does not get blocked. So we do have technical assistance on this, but maintaining the visibility, dealing with the curb treatments, and then continuing to make sure that we've got social distancing requirements are very important. And now I'd like to go ahead and ask Natasha Kalura, who is the Director of Special Events and Filming Department, which is the department that will be processing temporary street closures for temporary outdoor business operations. We're utilizing a special event permit process, but Natasha would like to give you some more detail on this. So I'll go ahead and move the slide to you, Natasha. Oops, I'll go back up. There you go.
Okay. And I turned on my video, but I still see Elise. So.
We can see.
Do I turn off my video?
Oh, can you see me, Marshall?
Yeah, we can see it, Natasha. Elise, go ahead and turn off your video, and Natasha, take it away.
Unless you want to keep this slide up, Natasha. You're good?
Yeah, if you can leave the slide up, that would be great.
Okay.
Well, I'm excited to be here, Natasha Kalura, Special Events Director, and I am going to talk a little bit about our street closure process. I know many of you are familiar with the special event permitting process, and we were excited to be able to facilitate the opening, expanded dining and retail operation program using the, sorry, I think I just lost that, using our special event permitting process. I just want to be clear though, and not that there's not confusion. The county has not given us permission to issue special event permits. What we are doing is we are using our existing processes to facilitate this program. So this is not an event permit. This is solely to help get this program going. So I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the requirements that you see on the screen, certainly submitting an application, maintaining social distancing. One of the things that some of you may be familiar with, the ones that have farmers markets that have reopened, they've done a great job with opening those markets. We were able to establish some guidelines to help facilitate the maintenance of social distancing. We are going to do the same thing for this program, and we wanted to get some of the questions and feedback from you all before we finalized those guidelines and issue them next week. So there will be some additional requirements that we will share with you all and hopefully make it easier for you guys to get this program going. As Elise mentioned, public circulation, compliance with ADA, it's standard things that basically, as you go through the special events permitting process, the reason we're using it is because it addresses all of those issues, stormwater, et cetera. So we're gonna be utilizing that process. So I think just to maybe go a little further, and you can take the screen down or leave it up if you want, Elise. You know, we're gonna be, similarly to the farmers markets, this will be a recurring permit. So, you know, that's also going to help as well, because we obviously don't want to have a permit issued every time you have the event. So it's going to follow similarly to how we accept permits for farmers markets. So we're going to be providing some feedback on those dates that are submitted for that. Capacity issues. I think one of the things that we wanted to make sure that the restaurants, you know, certainly can adhere to their original capacity, so they cannot exceed it. So if they have a capacity of 50 people for their restaurant, just because there is expanding dining, it cannot go over that 50. So you're still adhering to social distancing, et cetera, but still keeping with the capacity limits. Monitoring, making sure that folks know that the street is really a main thoroughfare. It's not something that there's no common areas. There's no commingling between the restaurants. It's a way to just walk through the closed street to get to the restaurant. So, and then I believe we just need to make sure that the dining and retail areas have to be clearly delineated. So there has to be something that separates the restaurant so that it's clear that that area is affiliated with that restaurant as with the retail locations. No portable restrooms, no common seating, and no commingling. Basically what we want to pass on to, and the county obviously provided us some feedback, and we're going to share that information with you all. But they really want to discourage anything that's going to create a feel of an event, create a crowd, create a gathering. Again, this is really to facilitate the expansion of dining and retail. So I think those were some of the highlights. We are clarifying that we are going to be modifying in the guidelines, we're going to be modifying the alcohol management plan. So there's going to be some additional detail on that to facilitate this program, to allow it to occur. And we know that the restaurants are going to be working with ABC on getting their temporary catering licenses, et cetera. But we are working very closely with PD, fire, ABC, and the county to try to clarify as much of this information in one document for you as possible. And with that, I'm going to turn it back over to.
Thank you, Natasha. And I know Elizabeth Studebaker is also on the call from the Economic Development Department. Liz, did you want to say a few words as well?
Sure. Can you hear me?
Loud and clear.
Hi, everybody. Yeah, I just wanted to echo what Elise and Natasha shared about our really excitement in launching this program and genuine support for having this transition be as smooth as possible. we do have a lot of adjustments to make and considerations in place with respect to allowances in our municipal code and compliance with state and local laws. So what we're proposing is what has been outlined for you today. And I think that hopefully for the rest of this conversation, we can get a little bit further into questions and other suggestions that maybe we didn't discuss, and see what comes of that. And then I also wanted to mention that Sean Carafin on my team, he's on this call as well. He has been working very closely with the Business Improvement District Alliance and our individual bids throughout the city. Those bids already manage, most of them already manage a public right-of-way program that we're hoping can be utilized as part of this as well, that allows bid organizations to issue permits to their individual business members for temporary use of the right-of-way. Traditionally, that has meant tables and chairs that can be placed in the sidewalk during business hours. So anything that you place in the right-of-way as part of the PROW program managed by the bids can only be in the right-of-way during open business hours. And it also includes A-frame signage and other merchandise displays. And so bids that are already managing those programs are in a good place to continue managing those. And we're gonna see what we can do with the bids that don't have an active PROW program to get them up to speed if they wish to engage with that program now. The other thing I wanted to mention is that any business owners or business associations that are interested in going down any one of these paths that have either preliminary questions or kind of just want to brainstorm with Sean and myself about the best solution or best kind of, package for individual members of theirs or for their community as a whole, should feel welcome to reach out to Sean and myself directly, and we can kind of go through what the different processes will be. I think most of our business associations have some familiarity with permitting at the city based on their experience with placemaking and also with assisting their business members with individual projects and doing public improvement projects in their communities as well. So that's really all. I just want to express support and sincere thanks to Elise and Natasha for taking the lead on this, and we're happy to be a resource and continue our involvement as needed.
Thank you, Liz, and that's so great to hear that you all have open ears and are willing to take more input as we go forward, and that's really what we're trying to do here. So I think staff is going to go ahead and put your guys' contact information so anyone could get in touch with you who needs to. And Elise, did you still have something else to say before we dive into the Q&A?
I do. I had a couple of more slides because I want to go over what we were proposing for the temporary ordinance. So if you don't mind just allowing me to finish up on those two slides, that would be great.
Take it away.
Okay. So thank you again to Economic Development team for being that resource and to special events. I also want to make sure that the folks on the call know that the use of private parking lots regulated by the city of San Diego and our code, we will be temporarily waiving parking requirements to allow the use of parking spaces and drive aisles by eating and drinking establishments for dining and by business for retail sales in those private parking lots. And this is kind of a big deal because we're basically waiving almost all the parking regulations. It'll be an interesting experiment to see on the private side who elects to continue to utilize their on-site private parking and who elects to utilize it for expansion of outdoor dining and retail. We're still in development with some of this. With the waiver of the parking regulations, you could essentially use your site footprint for this without any additional permitting. The city may require a temporary use permit just so that we can track it and ensure that we've got the correct fire safety requirements. We've got on our website that was shared with you and that I'll bring back at the end of this presentation. At the bottom of our website, you can submit your proposal. And if you want technical assistance to find out how to go through this process, go ahead and submit your proposal now, and we could get it to economic development or special events or DSD to help you. But in the private use of private parking lots, you still need to maintain social distancing, ADA, and follow the local regulations. Our emergency ordinance is also going to temporarily amend the sign ordinance and allow for installation of temporary banners and A-frame signs in the public right-of-way. Folks are already doing this, and we want to make it legal. We do want to encourage the use of the sign dimensions as appropriate for the size of your building, but we are waiving the need to have a right-of-way permit and a sign permit for these banners and A-frame signs. So we'll be allowing temporary A-frame signs to be installed in the public right-of-way, banners on the property, including the facade and fences. There are limits to the height and size. The A-frame signs cannot block your ADA or public circulation on your sidewalk, so you need to be able to accommodate that. But this is also a big move of the city. Lastly, the ordinance is going to include wholesale and distribution sales will also be temporarily amended to allow the direct of consumer sale of food, beverages, and groceries in places that they not normally are. Allow for sale for commercial vehicles in parking spaces on private property. All need to continue to have social distancing, ADA, and health department regulations. But this is a new concept that's also going into this temporary urgency ordinance. And I would say that the temporary allowances of these different permits are only going to be in place as long as there are social distancing requirements. We've got some links in here to the outside agency requirements, the alcoholic beverage control. We talked a little bit about alcohol earlier with the temporary catering authorization form. We've got a link to that here. State of California supplemental diagram for supporting what the ABC is requesting to allow you to serve the alcoholic beverages outside of your normal licensed footprint, but in the public right-of-way. And all of these resources are here for you. And then I've got our contact information on here on this site too. So we can leave that up, or we can get this sent out. Please remember at all of this that the regulations are still being drafted, and we do want to take your feedback and criticism before they go to council, ideally before the end of June. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Elise. And we will include all of that contact information and links in the recap email, which we'll be sending to all attendees. Before we move into the Q&A, we are joined by Brittany Bailey. Brittany's a policy advisor for Councilmember Chris Ward. She's been extremely supportive of this effort, working behind the scenes. Brittany, I'd like to give you an opportunity to say a few words, and then we'll leave some time for questions.
Sure. I just want to apologize. My baby chose this exact moment to start crying. But I just want to say good afternoon, everyone. And I want to thank Betsy and Marshall and the partnership for hosting the meeting today. Councilmember Ward is super excited about all the opportunities for open air dining in San Diego. You know, our office started having a host of roundtables with our bid leaders and with our business owners so that we could work together on a policy that would help their reopening. You know, we feel strongly that the proposal that Elise, Natasha, and Liz are bringing forward is a reflection of the strong partnership between our communities, our council office, and our city departments. It's really exciting to see this level of collaboration, especially since this is really a multi-departmental effort. we're excited to see the quick implementation of this going forward. I think we can all agree the quicker the better, and let's start helping folks immediately. Let's bring forward a fee waiver, and let's see flexibility in the programs and how we approach the creative uses of our right of way. So thank you all for joining this today and for strengthening this program, and we look forward to it coming to council soon. Thank you.
Thanks, Brittany. All right, let's delve into questions. The first one is from Michael. He asks, will the cost of police, fire, and SETC be covered under this program? Natasha, you are on mute.
There we go. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. So we're reviewing the applications as we get them in to see if PD staffing is required. We're working with PD, but it's our hope that we can treat these similarly to how the farmer markets operate, because we do not have a large cost related to, there's no traffic control. We have the set plan, it's a recurring permit. So the cost is very, very minimal. It's for it's a couple hours a quarter that PD will come and check in with the market to make sure things are going well. So we're really hoping that we can do something similarly to how we do farmers markets, so that there would not be that cost. So that's our goal.
All right, and then we have a question from Hannah. Hannah asks, will you be considering alleys as well as part of this program?
I think Elise is saying yes.
Elise is nodding yes. Alleys will be included for you, Hannah. All right, let's jump over to Peter. Peter had a question. Street cross slopes often exceed accessible slope maximums. Is this being waived during the review?
Thanks for that question, Peter. For the pedestrian plazas, they cannot be located on streets where the grade exceeds a minimum running slope of 5% or a maximum cross slope of 2%. So I don't know if that answers your questions, but if it is not accessible, it will not be permitted.
Okay. Sarah asks, what is the time frame we can keep the street closed? For how long? And I guess the question really is, what's the maximum?
So I think we are going to take a look at how this is working, what the impact is on the businesses and the residents nearby. Certainly we're going to want, make sure that that feedback is included as well. So is she asking about how long continuously, or how long this program is going to be running?
Well, perhaps you could answer both for us, Natasha.
So I think, for us, for our process, we can run this through, I think, as Elise said, while social distancing is being required. And then, or through the end of the year, whichever comes first for us, because that's how our permitting process works. So it'll be either social distancing conditions get lifted or through the end of the year.
Great, thank you. All right, Hazel asks, will all of these public area extensions be smoke-free?
That might be a question for the county, correct? Or I'm not sure.
And I know, I don't think anyone is here from County Public Health, but Hazel, maybe we can get you an answer to that question once we contact the right people. I think we're all kind of learning as we go. So a lot of these questions are great. So I think it helps us sort of formulate what the plan is moving forward.
And so just to add on, Cindy Kadama is our manager in special events. I know a lot of folks know her. She just sent me an addendum to the alleys being considered. I just want to make sure that folks know that there might be some specific requirements for fire that relate to alleys. So that could be something that's not covered in the general guidelines, but we're happy to answer those questions.
Great. All right, we did have a question from Diane. Given that this is unlike any other special events in nature, what category box should folks check on the special events permit?
We will clarify that in the guidelines. You're right, this is not an event. So we may end up adding a box for this temporarily, but there is something that's exhibit miscellaneous that they can use in the interim. And then if we add something specific, we'll update that. But right now they can just check exhibit and miscellaneous unless that changes from our end.
All right, perfect. Marit asks, for those of us that currently have a patio permit, are we allowed to remove our patio to allow for more tables and provide more distancing for our guests?
So when you say remove your patio, I believe you're just saying remove the metal barrier.
Yeah, that's what it sounds like.
Yes.
All right, heard it here first. Ed asks, what if your restaurant is located in front of a no parking curb? Can the restaurant still move to that side of the street?
No.
All right. What is the expected wait time for a permit once someone applies?
Which one?
How about the estimated time for a road closure, and then if someone wants to assume a parking lane?
So our goal, obviously, we're working with all the departments to expedite. So I think our goal is about 2 weeks right now to get it through the process.
Great.
Which is faster than it was before.
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we still have to do notice, for environmental. We still have to issue those, and we're working while that posting is going on. We're working in parallel to route it. So we have expedited it for this specific purpose.
Great. Mike asks, who will be closing the streets within each neighborhoods? Is it the responsibility of each bid, or is that the city?
It is not the city. It is the responsibility of the bid.
All right. So each bid will actually go out and put the physical.
Or the applicant. Yeah.
Okay. Or the applicant. All right. Here's a question from Pat, and Pat asks, what hours would businesses have access to closed streets? So buses or loading can take place. And it sounds like he's speaking specifically to 30th. So if you can't answer that, Pat, perhaps you could get in touch with your applicant or your neighborhood bid. But the question
we are obviously, asking applicants to work with MTS. MTS approval is required for this. So if an applicant is looking for a closure that might impact MTS, definitely they need to bring MTS into the process. And we're recommending that maybe not doing a full closure, like an all-day closure, but having different times. So that there's opportunity for the traffic to still occur and deliveries to still occur.
And it sounds like that should probably be the first step, is reaching out to MTS before you even really consider that stretch.
If there is bus routes on that location, they need to do that, or ideally look for locations that don't have a lot of bus routes.
This is a question from Alex. Alex asks, under the current DSD PROW, the PROW program of 2011, alcohol sales are not allowed. Will the city be amending the 2011 ordinance to allow alcohol sales?
The County of San Diego's guidance and the state of California guidance supersedes what the city of San Diego adopted. And because the state of California ABC will allow it, it is our intent to allow it without having to do a separate amendment. I'm verifying that, but the answer that we are trying to get to is yes, alcohol would be allowed.
Great. There's a question from Michael. He asks, can this program start before council has a chance to review the overall program?
The permit processes for Pedestrian Plaza, Sidewalk Cafe, and street closures are available now. If you apply to Natasha's division, you'll have to pay the fees to do the street closure special event permit, which are not cost prohibitive, in my opinion. They're under $200 for the permit application, and then another $175 for fire review, something to that effect. In our proposal, we're proposing to waive those fees in essence. So you can move forward with that process, but you wouldn't get the fees waived. As far as the Sidewalk Cafe and the Pedestrian Plaza regulations, you'll probably want to spend the next 2 weeks working with us to get guidance on your design, but I wouldn't advise executing it before council temporarily suspends the regulations, especially about you'll need to come in, and if you come in beforehand, I'll make you get a full permit. If you come in after we temporarily suspend the regulations, you basically can do it through just an EMRA. The fees are to come within development services because we are required to be completely cost recoverable. It's quite expensive right now. I believe if you were to come in with a pedestrian plaza and you have to get a site development permit processed for, then process a construction permit, you'll be looking at tens of thousands of dollars. And so you're gonna wanna wait. And just a little bit on that, I don't have any solid information, but what my intent as the Director of Development Services is to do with these regulations is to still require information from you, the applicant, but I'm streamlining that process. Every hour that my people have to spend looking at a plan and correcting it and sending it back to you, you have to pay us for. But I'm working with the mayor's office to try to determine if there is any funding available to cover those costs. I have not done that yet. No matter what, I will be creating a process that is very streamlined to keep costs down no matter what. But this is part of, we're still figuring some of these things out.
So can I just add to that the enhanced public right-of-way program that already exists in the bids, almost all of the bids already have the authority to permit their individual businesses to put tables and chairs out on the sidewalk, as well as merchandise for retailers. So while we're waiting on clarification on the alcohol question with respect to dining, I feel like something that can be done immediately, super easy and affordably, is helping retailers get their merchandise out on the sidewalk in a responsibly spaced manner that can be monitored by that local bid.
Great, thank you for that. Sarah asks, is there an option under either special event or pedestrian plaza to create an extended sidewalk for the whole block?
There is. I would like to see that come in under a single permit and be managed by a business improvement district.
Excellent.
But the important thing to remember is that if it's a series of restaurants, you still have to delineate, especially if you're going to serve alcohol, you still have to delineate the store frontage of each restaurant to keep them separate, because it's going to be required for sanitation purposes and keeping track of the tables and the cleanliness, et cetera, et cetera. So it could be done, and I think it should be done, but we just have to make sure that that there are minor barriers between each restaurant.
I know part of these programs, some of the things we're trying to do is to make it cool, right? You want to draw people to the area. And I know we've been talking about potentially having live music or other activations. Natasha, maybe you could speak to some of the limitations with the county and potentially what we would need to do as advocates to get those limitations waived.
So as we all know, things change constantly. They're changing by the day sometimes. And at this time, we checked with the county. There's a lot of nuances, but they are very concerned that anything that might create a event atmosphere or a gathering or cause people to linger or to abandon social distancing, they're concerned about that. And so the guidance we've received, especially for the farmers market, is related to no entertainment, no demonstrations, nothing that can create either activity or an event type of feel, because again, just want to emphasize, this is definitely not an event. If we start to present it or envision it like an event, we're going to have some challenges because we really want to make sure that this is to facilitate the expanded dining and retail. So that's another thing I wanted to just reiterate, working with PD and kind of cleaning up those guidelines, is to make sure that we are encouraging the restaurants to, verbally let their customers know, hey, yeah, we can do this. Make sure that you don't take your drink and go walk out into the general street area, because the street will be closed, but there is no alcohol that will be allowed on the street, and that would cause definite challenges to this being able to continue. Farmers Market had a in and out type of situation where they could verbally tell everybody coming in all the rules. There's going to be more access points here, so I think as the applicants submit their proposals, really working with the restaurants with messaging and signage to make sure that that does not occur and that we can keep everybody contained within their appropriate areas.
Thanks, Natasha. There was a question from Ruth Ann, and I'll preface this with this webinar is being co-branded by the San Diego Bid Alliance, which is really all the business improvement districts, maintenance assessment districts throughout the region, even outside of the city of San Diego. And I don't expect you to have an answer right now, but Ruth Ann is asking if there's any word on a process that's similar for the unincorporated areas of the county outside of the city.
Not that I'm aware of.
Great. So Ruth Ann, we can put you in touch with an official over at the county for you. With that, I know we're coming up on time. I just wanted to thank you all for joining us. I know you're all extremely busy, you and your teams. I want to thank all the participants. We will be making a recording of this webinar available in a recap email that will be sent out to all participants. The Downtown Partnership will be launching a new Fed and Educated webinar series, so stay tuned for more details on that. If you have any ideas related to today's topic or for other resources that would be helpful to you, please feel free to contact us at the Downtown Partnership. Reach out to your neighborhood BID or MAD, or reach out to the San Diego Business Improvement District Alliance. Make sure you stay safe, stay strong. We look forward to seeing you again very soon. Thank you.